Did you have, on the Petito case, going back to that, did you have, towards the beginning of you being camped out and, trying to uncover information, was law enforcement asking you questions about? That said, both, they were young. I think they were like, 24 and 20, something like that.
Young, yep.
And they had moved away from New York. They're living in Florida with his family. His parents, like you said, are at the center of the story. And it's like, what do they know? They go on this romantic journey across the country. One comes back, the other doesn't. Then you had the whole footage from when the cops pulled them over. So it added more drama. It
had
like
it all on that, yeah. And you had, as a storyteller, as a journalist, you had immediately all of their videos when they were missing. So you could tell their story and people saw them and became like obsessed because, sometimes you'll cover a missing case and it's like, the family will give you 3 still photos. And it's like, you got to make people care. And I think that, it was like we were handed this whole envelope. They had great YouTube videos. So people became very, very invested.
Did you trying to think, like how long was the process again from you first getting on the ground to they find Brian Laundrie's body, not hers? They found his.
So maybe a month.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, at first we thought he was in the house, which is the reason I was camping out, because we didn't know, was an arrest going to go down at any time? Was she going to show up? My first thought when I got there was that maybe this was like some kind of social media hoax, like were they somehow doing this that was honestly before I knew anything. I'm like, are they kind of doing this for attention? Like,
oh, wow.
And she's going to, that was just what I first thought before I knew anything. So we were just waiting there and assumed that he was in the house, and then realized something really shady was going on because they would never come out and his family would never talk, which was just kind of weird. Like your daughter-in-law is missing and you're held up in the house, like hiding out. And then he went missing. Yeah. And somehow, mysteriously disappeared from inside the house. And
you didn't see, you had no inkling of that.
No idea. And the police didn't either. And and one day they were just like, we now don't, that you talk about why it was such a big story. So all of it was big. And then all of a sudden they come out one day when everybody thinks he's been in the house and they say, and now we don't know where Brian Laundrie is. We've lost track of him. He's not in the house anymore. It was like, oh my God.
And his parents weren't cooperating at all, which was, that was so strange to watch. It is impossible to put yourself in the shoes of, someone who raised someone for 20 some years and then is maybe in denial about what he did and is trying to protect their kid. But at the same time, you have another missing human being here. It's like morally. Yeah. You should probably help out.
Totally.
I think that's fair to say. But they were so, I would, from the outside, I'd describe it as they were stonewalling it.
Well, and we would later find out, I've been working on this now for years, but, through depositions and stuff, that they had hired a criminal lawyer in Idaho where, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes. But at that time, just back to what I was saying, like, I started following them because it was hard to not go all in, like just want to know, well, where are they going? What's happening? Are they going to visit Brian? Like where?
Did they catch you following them in the car?
I'm pretty sure they knew. And I think the FBI there was always like a few of us following, like, so it wasn't just me, like there were,
You're like waving to the FBI.
But again, there was just this moment. And when you went back to like kind of where do you draw the line in ethics? Like I remember thinking like, what is the line here? Like, should I be following? And you get personally obsessed with something in a case. And I just remember saying to Luis, like, that my photographer, like, where should we keep doing this? Like, and I remember like even my bosses didn't know we were doing it sometimes. We would just like do it,
Yeah, that was another question. It's like how much do they know about your, not even minute to minute, obviously, as you just pointed out, but like day to day, like what your strategy was? Are you on the phone with producers at NewsNation? Like, here's what I'm thinking about doing today. And
NewsNation
like,
had just started. So, we're a new news organization even still, but this was the very beginning. So we are startup. We're still a startup, but even then it was like, how a startup is. We're already kind of like working everything out. Yeah. And at that point now NewsNation does like, we're on TV 24 hours a day pretty much with news. But back then we were only doing 2-3 hours a night because we had just started. And they would run like Blue Bloods and all these old shows during the day. So it gave me a lot more time to kind of like do those sort of, I'd follow them for hours, and like I didn't have to be on TV until at night. So I would tell, they kind of knew, but I think something in me was kind of pushing the limit a little bit during that. I think, but I don't think you can be good at the job if you're constantly worried about like rules and stuff.
You had said a little bit ago that there were times earlier in your career where in hindsight you felt like you had crossed the line. What do you have examples of that, and why you think it was across the line afterwards?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a few. I mean, I don't want to jump around too much. I guess we'll talk about Brian Koberger later, but
yeah, we will.
I've regretted some things, like I snuck into his parents' neighborhood, which was like a gated neighborhood, and I got a lot of heat for that. Like people who felt bad for his parents. It's just when you're in the zone of a story and it's so hot and it's so raw in that moment, and you're like, when we look back and talk about these things, it's like chill, but like when you're in something that's that big in that moment and you're that invested and you're not sleeping and you're putting your all into the story, like sometimes you just maybe push a little too hard.
Is the mentality when you're doing this, I don't even know if you know this when you're in it, but I guess answer this as best you can. Is the mentality when you're doing this leaning more towards reporting the news and reporting the story, or actually because you are doing that, also like kind of being an investigator and solving it and helping the investigation itself with the professionals?
I think it's mostly reporting the story.
Okay.
Because, I don't want to ever interfere with, like I said, I don't think I've ever done anything, hopefully, to really interfere with a police investigation. That's never been an issue for me, because I don't ever want to do that. So mostly it's just reporting, but along the way, like when these things are unsolved, of course you're thinking, like, sometimes you find things. I mean, even like with Gabby Petito, it was just a regular person who had some video that they found on their dash cam. You know what I mean? Like, you can find things along the way, but I try not to go into it like that. I want to be a reporter, number one, and just bring information to people.
Did you have, on the Petito case, going back to that, did you have, towards the beginning of you being camped out and, trying to uncover information, was law enforcement asking you questions about, hey, have you seen this or seen that, like to try to help with the investigation? A
little bit. They were really, they were under a lot of pressure, and a lot of people were calling them out at that time. I mean, they weren't, the public was not happy with law enforcement during all of that, obviously. And then when he snuck out of the house and they didn't know, people thought it was just like a dog and pony show. So they were very careful with what they would say. I remember when I was telling you about how I saw I saw them putting up the secret cameras in the backyard of Ryan Laundrie's house, and like he had a neighbor behind his house where they put the cameras up in the trees. So I remember I went over to that neighbor and I was like, hey, like I saw them doing that, and he took me in the back and was like, yeah, here are the cameras, and here's like they had like a whole little antenna system beaming the video back to their police station and everything. So I remember I told one of the police, like sergeants, like one of the higher ups that I was dealing with as a member of the media, I told them at one point that I had seen that and that I knew where they were. And I actually interviewed the neighbor and got video of the cameras. Cause that's kind of my other thing. Like, you might as well, you don't have to use it. And I didn't use it, but like when it's all over one day, I still wanted to document what I was getting in real time. And I remember telling them that and kind of like trying to show them that they could trust me, because they probably thought I was this crazy guy like camping, but it was like, listen, just so you know, like I have this and I would never put this out. So just trying to build like trust in that way, and I've had other situations like that in other cases with cops where I'll come across something and it's like clearly they wouldn't want this out. So, and sometimes I'll let them know that I have it just to kind of show like, this could be an incredible. I mean, if I had put the story out in that moment with the secret cameras, like you said, talk about clicks, talk about views.
Insane.
But it's like, I'm not going to do something. I've gotten to know the families and I want justice and I want them to find their daughter. And then also, like, I'm not going to do something where I can't sleep well at night. And, I would feel bad about that.
Yeah.
It's not worth like one viral post or one big story on NewsNation, you know?
I agree. You have to toe that line, like we were saying a little earlier. It's a tough line to toe sometimes because like you have a job to do.
Yeah.
But I think people don't want to see that, like, let's say people in the media are like in cahoots with law enforcement all times.
Yeah.
But I think there's a really, especially when it's, you know, someone's missing or there's a life at stake, there's an appropriate middle ground there to where you at least say, hey, I got my job, you got your job.
Yeah.
But if there's something that can interfere with each other's jobs that is not in the public interest, we can make that call together.
Right.
And so, like you said, that probably helps in other investigations that you're then involved with where they're like, okay, we know this guy is not going to just like run his mouth every time he picks something up. And, you know, that's important for you to be able to actually get sources and do your job.
Yeah. And for them, I mean, solving the case is ultimately the end goal.
Yeah.
I mean, me doing a story, if that's going to impact that, it's just not worth it in that moment. But at the same time, like, you're not going to let law enforcement start bossing you around. And
that's the line.
And a lot of them will call it now, our media partners, and I always thought that was a little weird. Like, we're not your partner. Like, we're, we can help each other. We can help you get the word out about things, but it's a weird. It's definitely there's not a clear line there.
Yes.
It kind of changes depending on the story and sort of what's happening.
And it's strange because you have to make gut calls a lot.
You do.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
And you mentioned like calling your producers and bosses, but like a lot of times you're the one there. Like, you really have to make the call. Like, you're the one who's seeing what's happening and who knows the players. So like, you can't really rely on your boss all the time.
And your boss being removed and wanting the story and stuff, they're going to be a little more, let's say, biased towards you reporting things. That's just the nature of the business. So you have to be able to say, well, am I shooting my load for just this one story and I'm going to fuck myself in the future? Or is this in the best interest for me to hold on to this and document it later?
Yeah.
Like
and sometimes you just don't even tell anybody or your boss. Like, that's the thing, like with a photographer and producer you're out with, like, you guys have usually a tight relationship, especially the good ones, because it's like there are things that you're like, listen, let's just keep this between us for now, because like you said, other people will get we got it, oh my God, let's get it out, and it's like, then you're the one who looks like a jerk.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.